Rain slid down the hospital windows like quiet tears, blurring the city lights outside. Inside the dim corridor, Lily Harper sat on a cold bench, her hands trembling over the curve of her pregnant belly. A purple bruise bloomed along her jaw, half hidden by her hair. Each shallow breath hurt. Somewhere down the hall, a man laughed. Deep, careless, powerful. Ethan Blackwood's voice. Billionaire, philanthropist, monster. No one had stopped him earlier when his anger exploded in the parking garage. No one, except one man who smelled of bleach and old coffee, standing alone now with a mop in his hand and fear in his eyes. Before the story pulls you further in, pause with me for a second. Where are you watching from right now? It still amazes me how one moment, one choice, can echo across cities and screens. Drop your place below. Let's feel how far the story travels. Earlier that evening, the office tower downtown had been alive with polished shoes and quiet ambition. Ethan Blackwood owned the building, the kind of man whose name hung on walls and donor plaques. He walked like the ground owed him respect. Lily followed a step behind, her hand pressed protectively to her belly as the elevator doors closed. She'd learned to stay quiet in small spaces. In the underground garage, the argument started low. A missed call, a question asked the wrong way. Ethan's voice sharpened, words slicing the air. Lily tried to explain, her voice shaking. The slap came fast, loud, final. Her body hit the concrete. For a moment, everything froze. Cars idled. Security cameras blinked. People saw. People looked away. Michael Reyes had been pushing his janitor cart toward the service elevator. When it happened, he was a single dad, 42, with tired eyes and a back that ached before noon. His daughter Ava was at home with homework spread across the kitchen table, waiting for him. Michael saw Lily fall, saw the blood on her lip, saw Ethan raise his hand again. His heart pounded so hard it drowned out reason. He thought of Ava, thought of rent, thought of how men like Ethan didn't get challenged. They erased people. Still, his feet moved. Hey! Michael shouted, his voice cracking the still air. Every head turned. Ethan looked almost amused. This doesn't concern you, he said calmly, like he was correcting a waiter. Michael swallowed. She's pregnant. Silence stretched. Then Ethan stepped closer, eyes cold. Walk away. Michael didn't. He stood there, mop shaking in his grip, legs weak but planted. Security finally rushed in, more embarrassed and urgent. Lily was helped up, her eyes wide with shock. Ethan straightened his suit, already dialing a lawyer, already untouchable. By the time Michael finished his shift, rumors had spread. He was called into an office with no windows. Fired. No severance. No apology. Just a warning to keep his mouth shut if he knew what was good for him. That night, Michael sat at the small kitchen table with Ava. She noticed the way his hands shook as he helped her with math. "Did you do something bad?" she asked softly. He met her eyes and chose truth. "No, Mija, I did something scary." She nodded, serious. Sometimes scary is good. Across town, Lily lay in a hospital bed, machines humming softly. The baby was safe for now, but the fear lingered like a shadow. Nurses whispered about Ethan's donations, about how cases like this disappeared. Lily stared at the ceiling, wondering if Michael's courage had only made things worse for him, and if anyone would ever believe her. Morning came too fast. Headlines praised Ethan for announcing a new charity fund. His face smiled from every screen. Lily's phone buzzed with messages telling her to rest, to forgive, to think of the baby. Forgive. The word felt heavy. Michael spent the day walking the city, job applications folded in his pocket. Each will call you. Felt like a door closing. Still, when his phone rang that evening and an unknown number flashed on the screen, he answered. "Mr. Reyes?" A woman's voice asked gently. "This is Grace Miller. I'm a social worker at St. Anne's Hospital. A patient asked for you by name." Michael's chest tightened. "Is she okay?" There was a pause. "She wants to thank you, and she's afraid." Michael leaned against a brick wall, the city noise rushing past him. He closed his eyes, knowing that whatever waited on the other end of this path, There would be no turning back now. Michael arrived at St. Anne's Hospital just after sunset. The sky bruised purple and gray. The building smelled of antiseptic and quiet prayers. He hadn't changed his clothes, still wearing the faded blue jacket with his name stitched crookedly on the chest. It felt safer that way, like armor from the life he knew. Grace Miller met him in the lobby. She was in her early 30s, hair pulled back, eyes tired but kind. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, already walking. "She's been asking for you all day." Michael hesitated. "I don't want to cause trouble." Grace stopped and looked at him. "You already did something most people didn't. That matters." Lily's room was dim, lit by a single lamp. She looked smaller than he remembered, swallowed by white sheets and wires. When she saw him, her eyes filled instantly. "You didn't have to come," she whispered. Michael stood awkwardly near the door. "I want to make sure you were okay." She let out a breath that sounded like it had been held for years. No one's ever said that without wanting something back. He shook his head. "I don't want anything." For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of machines filled the space. Lily finally broke the silence. "They told me you lost your job." Michael shrugged, trying to smile. "Jobs come and go. But courage doesn't," she said, her voice breaking. "You stood there when everyone else disappeared. Why?" Michael looked down at his hands. "I've got a daughter. I couldn't let her grow up in a world where men like that never get told no." Lily wiped her eyes. "Thank you for seeing me. If you were standing there in that garage, heart racing, knowing what it could cost you, what would you have done? Be honest. Write your answer below. And if words feel heavy, just tap like to say that bravery still means something." Over the next few days, Lily stayed in the hospital under observation. Ethan never visited. Instead, lawyers did. Men in suits who spoke gently while reminding her of prenups, reputations, and consequences. One suggested rest. Another suggested silence. Michael, meanwhile, searched for work during the day and sat by Lily's bedside in the evenings. He brought cheap coffee and stories about Ava, how she loved drawing horses, how she believed every adult had a secret superpower. Lily listened like those stories were oxygen. Grace noticed it too. "You know," she said one night in the hallway, "most people would have vanished by now." Michael leaned against the wall. She shouldn't be alone. The pressure started quietly. Michael received a letter hinting at legal exposure if he spread false claims. His landlord called about a late payment. A black car idled outside his building more than once. Fear crept in during the small hours, whispering that he'd gone too far. Lily sensed it. "You don't have to keep coming," she said one evening, eyes searching his face. "I don't want your life ruined because of me." Michael pulled a chair closer. "It's already messy, but at least now it's honest." One afternoon, as rain tapped against the windows, Lily finally spoke about the beginning. How Ethan had been charming once. How control arrived dressed as protection. How apologies came wrapped in gifts. "I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad," she said, staring at her hands, "until I realized I was teaching my child to accept it." Michael listened without interrupting. He didn't fix. He didn't judge. He just stayed. Grace arranged a meeting with a women's advocacy lawyer, quiet and careful. The lawyer warned Lily about power and money, about how the system bent. Lily's shoulders slumped. "So nothing changes?" "Change is slow," the lawyer said, "but it starts with someone telling the truth." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. Michael sat beside her bed. Ava's drawing folded in his pocket, like a lucky charm. Lily whispered, "What if I'm not strong enough?" Michael thought of his daughter, asleep at home. "Strength isn't loud," he said. "Sometimes it's just not walking back into the fire." Days passed. News outlets moved on. Ethan's name shone brighter than ever. Lily was discharged with instructions to rest and reconcile if possible. The word reconcile made her feel sick. Michael walked her out to the hospital entrance. "I'll check on you," he said. She looked at him, really looked. "Why are you risking everything for someone you barely know?" Michael answered honestly, "Because once, a long time ago, no one did it for my mom." The city lights flickered on as Lily stepped into the night, her hand on her belly, her future uncertain. Across the street, the black car waited again. And somewhere behind those tinted windows, someone was deciding how much one janitor's courage was worth. The rain began to fall harder, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The days after Lily left the hospital felt heavier than the rain that refused to stop. She stayed in the townhouse Ethan had bought her. Too expensive, too quiet, every room echoing with memories she didn't want. Michael checked in by text at first. Short messages. Safe ones. You okay? Ava says hi. Lily always replied, even if it took hours. Knowing someone was still there made the walls feel less tight. Ethan returned 3 nights later. His car pulled into the driveway like nothing had happened. No apology, no explanation, just entitlement. Lily heard the door before she saw him, the familiar sound that once meant comfort and now meant fear. He smiled when he saw her swollen eyes. You embarrass me, he said calmly, loosening his tie. We'll fix that. Lily's hands trembled. I'm not going back to how it was. Ethan's smile faded. You don't get to decide that. That night, Lily slept with her bedroom door locked, a chair wedged under the handle. She pressed both hands to her belly and whispered promises to a child not yet born. In the morning, she packed a small bag and left while Ethan was on call, slipping out like a ghost. She went somewhere no one expected. A small shelter Grace had quietly arranged. It wasn't glamorous. The carpet was worn, the walls thin, but it was safe. For the first time in months, Lily exhaled fully. Michael arrived that evening with Ava. Lily hadn't expected him to bring his daughter, but when Ava walked in, holding a paper bag of muffins like it was a gift from a queen, Lily laughed. A real laugh, surprising herself. These are blueberry, Ava announced proudly. Dad says they help sad days. They do, Lily said, her eyes shining. Thank you. Michael watched the two of them from the doorway, something warm and painful twisting in his chest. Ava took Lily's hand without hesitation, placing it gently on her own small stomach. Your baby will like muffins too, she said seriously. In that moment, Lily felt something shift. Not healing, not yet, but possibility. Later that night, after Ava fell asleep on a borrowed couch, Lily told Michael the truth she'd never said out loud. About the threats, about the contract Ethan made her sign years ago, about how he'd promised no one would ever believe her. Michael listened, jaw tight. My mom stayed, he said quietly, not because she wanted to, because she thought leaving would destroy us. Lily swallowed. Did it? He shook his head slowly. Staying did. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes if you have, and if you can, say their name. Sometimes gratitude deserves to be spoken aloud. The shelter days blurred together. Lily attended counseling sessions. Michael picked up temporary night work cleaning offices, lower pay, longer hours. Ava stayed with a neighbor more often than he liked. The black car still appeared sometimes, farther away now, like a warning that never slept. One afternoon, Grace arrived at the shelter with urgency in her steps. Lily, she said, lowering her voice, Ethan's team is spinning a story. They're calling you unstable, saying you left because of pregnancy stress. Lily felt the room tilt. So that's it? Grace hesitated. Unless you speak first. Fear roared back to life. Lily imagined cameras, headlines, comments dissecting her pain. She looked at Michael, who had come with her to the meeting. I can't, she whispered. He'll destroy you too. Michael didn't answer right away. He thought of Ava's future, of quiet dinners, of safety. Then he nodded once. If telling the truth cost me everything, I can live with that. The next week moved fast. A journalist Grace trusted agreed to meet, off record at first. Lily told her story in fragments, hands shaking, voice breaking. The journalist didn't interrupt. She didn't rush. When Lily finished, the woman closed her notebook slowly. People like him survive because people like you are silenced, she said. That ends when one person speaks loud enough. The article went live on a Tuesday morning. By noon, the internet exploded. Some believed Lily instantly. Others tore her apart. Ethan's lawyers went on record denying everything, painting Michael as a disgruntled employee chasing money. Michael's phone rang nonstop. Job offers disappeared. Threats appeared. That evening, Michael sat alone in his apartment. Eviction notice on the table. Ava was asleep, clutching her favorite stuffed bear. He wondered if courage had a breaking point. Across town, Lily watched the news from the shelter common room. Her face filled the screen, pale, determined. For the first time, Ethan wasn't smiling. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You will regret this." Lily closed her eyes. Fear surged, but it didn't own her anymore. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The city was restless, stirred awake by a truth it wasn't sure it wanted to face. And as the night deepened, all of them sensed it. The calm before something irreversible was about to happen. The backlash came in waves, each one harder than the last. By morning, Lily's name was everywhere. Trending, dissected, judged by strangers who knew nothing of the nights she'd locked doors and held her breath. Some called her brave. Others called her a liar chasing fame. Ethan's face appeared beside hers on split screens, calm and offended, speaking of false narratives and deep concern for my wife's health. Michael watched it all from a folding chair in the shelter's storage room, where he'd been allowed to sleep after his landlord finally changed the locks. He kept the volume low, so Ava wouldn't wake. Every accusation felt like a punch meant for Lily, but landing on him too. Grace worked nonstop. Phone pressed her ear, arranging legal protection, counseling slots, safe routes. "This always happens," she told Lily gently. "Truth shakes people. Not everyone likes being shaken." Lily nodded, but inside, doubt gnawed at her. Had she done the right thing? She watched Michael come back from another overnight cleaning shift. Shoulders slumped, eyes ringed with exhaustion. This was the cost. Her cost wasn't hers alone anymore. One afternoon, a woman at the shelter pulled Lily aside. "I saw the interview," she said quietly. "What you said, it sounded like my life." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you." That was the first crack in the darkness. More followed. Messages poured in, private ones. Women, men too. Stories whispered through screens. "Say me too. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was alone." Lily read them late into the night, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the baby move as if responding. Michael noticed a change. "You're standing straighter," he said one morning. I think I'm not invisible anymore," Lily replied. Ethan's response was swift. He filed a defamation lawsuit, not just against Lily, but naming Michael as well. The papers arrived in thick envelopes, heavy with threat. Michael stared at his name in bold letters, a chill running through him. "Dad," Ava asked softly, watching his face. "Are we in trouble?" Michael knelt in front of her, choosing his words with care. "We're in a storm," he said, "but storms pass." She nodded, trusting him completely. That trust hurt more than the fear. "Now it's your turn. Pause here for a moment. Share one small good thing you've done for someone recently, even if it felt insignificant. Write it below, so others remember that kindness still exists. Your story might be exactly what someone needs tonight." Court dates loomed. Media trucks camped outside the shelter until Grace arranged a transfer to a safer location. Lily's pregnancy advanced, her body aching, emotions raw. Some nights she woke gasping, nightmares replaying the garage scene over and over. Michael would sit outside her door until dawn, just in case. One evening, the journalist who'd broken the story returned with new information. "We've found patterns," she said, spreading documents across the table. "Settlements, NDAs, other women." Ethan paid them to disappear. Lily's hand shook. "Will they talk?" "Some are scared," the journalist admitted, "but one already has." Hope flared, fragile but bright. Ethan's empire began to wobble. Sponsors pulled out, pending investigation. Board members resigned quietly. His charity foundation issued vague statements. Still, his legal team pushed hard, delaying, intimidating, exhausting everyone involved. Michael's bank account hit zero. He sold his old watch, skipped meals so Ava wouldn't. One night, as he tucked her in on a borrowed mattress. She asked, "Was it worth it?" He swallowed. "Ask me again someday," he said honestly. "But I think, yes." The trial date finally arrived on a gray morning that smelled like rain. Lily walked into the courthouse, flanked by Grace and a volunteer escort. Her steps were slow but steady. Michael followed. Soup borrowed, heart hammering. Inside, the air buzzed with tension. Ethan sat across the room, immaculate, unbothered. When his eyes met Lily's, something dark flickered, anger mixed with disbelief that she was still standing. Testimonies began. Experts, text messages, medical records. Then Lily took the stand. Her voice trembled at first. Then it found its rhythm. She spoke of fear without drama, of control without exaggeration. She spoke for herself, and for the women who couldn't be there. Michael watched from the gallery, fists clenched, every word carving itself into him. When Ethan's lawyer tried to twist her pain into instability, Lily didn't flinch. "I'm not weak," she said clearly. I was silenced. Gasps rippled through the room. Then came the unexpected moment. Another woman stood, older, calm. She named Ethan and told her story, years old, buried under money and shame. The courtroom went still. Ethan's composure cracked. Outside, reporters rushed to catch reactions. Inside, Lily felt the baby kick hard, like a signal. Tears blurred her vision, not of fear this time, but release. As the judge called for recess, Michael felt something shift in the room, like history bending just enough to let light through. But the hardest moment still waited ahead. The courthouse emptied slowly, like a room exhaling after holding too much air. Reporters crowded the steps, voices colliding, cameras flashing. Lily felt dizzy as Grace guided her to a quiet hallway. Her legs trembled, not from fear now, but from the weight of what had been released. Inside the courtroom, Ethan sat frozen, his jaw tight, his fingers clenched around a pen he'd snapped clean in half. For the first time, control had slipped from his hands in public, not because of shouting, not because of revenge, but because truth had multiplied. Michael waited near a water fountain, staring at the floor tiles like they were the only solid thing left. When Lily emerged, their eyes met. No words passed between them. They weren't needed. Something had shifted permanently. If that moment pressed on your chest the way it did on theirs, leave a red heart. Some truths don't need explanations. They just need to be felt. The recess stretched into hours. Lawyers huddled. Phones buzzed. Somewhere, deals were being renegotiated. Stories rewritten. Grace returned with news written all over her face. "Ethan's team wants to talk," she said quietly. "Off record." Lily stiffened. "I'm done negotiating my pain." Grace nodded. "So are we. This time, it's about consequences." When proceedings resumed, the courtroom felt different. Less like a stage. More like a reckoning. Additional evidence was admitted. Patterns too clear to ignore. Ethan's attorney objected, until his voice grew thin. The judge's patience wore thinner. By late afternoon, the ruling on preliminary motions came down. Ethan's attempt to dismiss the case was denied. Criminal investigation authorized. Civil protections granted to Lily. Temporary restraining order issued. The words landed like thunder. Lily closed her eyes as tears finally fell. Not the quiet ones she'd swallowed for years. These were free, unashamed. Michael exhaled a breath he felt he'd been holding since the garage. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through clouds, touching the courthouse steps in pale gold. Reporters swarmed, but this time the questions sounded different. "Lily, do you feel safe now?" She paused, one hand resting on her belly. "Safer than yesterday," she said honestly, "and stronger than I ever thought I could be." That night, the shelter held a small gathering. No speeches, just soup, bread, tired smiles. Women shared stories in low voices. Laughter appeared, tentative, real. Lily sat among them, not above, not apart. Michael watched Ava play with another child, drawing suns and houses, and stick figures holding hands. He felt pride and fear and exhaustion all at once. The lawsuit still loomed. Money was still gone. But something priceless had been returned. dignity. Grace pulled Michael aside. "There's something you should know," she said. "A foundation reached out. Anonymous donors. They want to help with legal fees. Housing. Discretion." Michael blinked. "Why?" Grace smiled faintly. "Because courage reminds people who they want to be." Later that night, Lily stood alone by the shelter window. The city looked different now, less hostile, more awake. She felt the baby move again, steady and strong. "I'm going to name her Hope," Lily whispered. In the days that followed, dominoes fell. Ethan's business partners distanced themselves. Investigations expanded. More women came forward. Each voice added weight, until denial collapsed under its own lies. Michael found steady work through the foundation, maintenance supervisor at a public school. Modest pay, honest hours. Ava beamed when he told her. "Does that mean you fix things?" she asked. "Yeah," he smiled. "Mostly broken stuff." Lily moved into transitional housing, small but bright. She attended therapy, prenatal appointments, legal meetings. Some days were heavy. Others light surprised her. Healing wasn't a straight line, but it was moving. One evening, Michael and Ava visited. They brought muffins again. Lily laughed at the tradition. Ava placed her ear against Lily's belly. "She's strong," she declared. Lily's eyes filled. "She learned from all of you." As the months passed, the trial date was set. Ethan's influence shrank visibly. Still, fear lingered, not of him, but the future's unknown shape. Forgiveness hovered like a question no one dared ask yet. On a quiet night, Lily sat with Michael on the shelter steps. The air cool and calm. "Do you think people can really change?" she asked. Michael thought of his mother, of himself, of Ethan. "Some do," he said. "Some just get exposed." Lily nodded, understanding the difference now. The city hummed softly around them, unaware of how many lives had bent but not broken within its streets. And as the wind carried the scent of rain and possibility, Lily felt it. The approaching moment when pain would finally face its last test. The night before Lily was scheduled to testify again, sleep refused to come. The apartment was quiet except for the ticking of a cheap wall clock and the distant sound of traffic. Lily sat on the edge of her bed, one hand circling her belly, the other clutching a folded letter she hadn't opened yet. It had arrived that afternoon. No return address, just her name, written carefully, almost respectfully. Michael had told her not to read it alone. Grace had said the same. But something inside Lily needed to face it without witnesses. The letter was short. Ethan wrote that he was tired, that everything had spiraled further than he'd imagined, that he never meant to lose control. He spoke of pressure, of legacy, of stress. Near the end, one line stood out colder than the rest. "If you let this go, we can both still have a future." Lily's hands shook, not with fear, with clarity. She folded the letter back up and placed it in the drawer, untouched by tears. The old Lily would have searched for apology hidden between the lines. This Lily saw it for what it was, another attempt to survive without consequence. The next morning, Michael walked her to the courthouse. The air was crisp, sharp enough to wake every nerve. He carried her bag without asking. She noticed how careful he was with her steps, how present. "Whatever happens today," he said quietly, "you didn't imagine your pain." She nodded. "I know." Inside, the courtroom felt heavier than before. This was no longer just about evidence. It was about endings. Ethan entered surrounded by lawyers, his confidence thinner now, edges frayed. When he saw Lily, his gaze dropped for the first time. Testimony resumed. Experts spoke. Patterns were drawn clearly, undeniably. Then the judge called for Lily once more. As she took the stand, the room stilled. She spoke calmly, about the cycle, about the fear of leaving, about the lie that abuse only counts if it leaves visible scars. Her voice didn't break, not because it couldn't, but because it no longer needed to. Ethan's attorney stood for cross-examination, trying one last angle. "Mrs. Blackwood," he said, "is it possible that your husband simply made mistakes that could be forgiven?" The word landed hard. Lily looked at Ethan then, really looked, at the man she once tried to save by shrinking herself, at the cost of that silence. She answered without raising her voice. Forgiveness doesn't cancel accountability. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Outside, Michael sat gripping the bench, knuckles white. Ava was with neighbor, unaware how close her father stood to the edge of history. Michael wondered what forgiveness even meant anymore, who it was for, who it freed. Be honest for a moment. Could you forgive after something like this? Type forgive if you believe you could, or never, if that wound would be too deep. There's no wrong answer, only truth. By late afternoon, closing statements were delivered. The judge announced that a verdict would be reached the following morning. One more night of waiting. Ethan's legal team requested a private meeting with Lily again. She refused. Grace supported her fully. Silence is no longer your obligation, she said. That evening, Lily, Michael, Grace, and Ava shared dinner in Lily's small apartment. Nothing fancy. Pasta, bread, laughter slipping in unexpectedly. Ava drew a picture of a courthouse with a giant sun above it. What's that? Lily asked gently. That's the light, Ava said. Dad says it shows up when people tell the truth. Michael blinked, surprised. He didn't remember saying that. Maybe he needed to believe it too. Later, after Ava fell asleep on the couch, Lily stood on the balcony alone. The city lights stretched endlessly, indifferent but alive. She thought about forgiveness, not of Ethan, but of herself, for staying, for doubting, for surviving the only way she knew how. Across town, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse, staring at walls stripped of photos and art seized for investigation. The silence pressing, louder than any accusation. For the first time, there was no one left to intimidate, no deal left to make. Morning came. The courthouse filled early. Cameras waited. So did consequences. Lily sat beside Michael, hands steady. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The verdict was read slowly, deliberately. Findings of abuse upheld, criminal charges to proceed, assets frozen, protections made permanent. Ethan's shoulders sagged. The room seemed to tilt around him. Lily closed her eyes, not in relief, but release. Outside, as the doors opened and sunlight spilled across the steps, Lily took one breath, deep and full. The fight wasn't over completely, but the lie was, and in that moment, standing between the man who once hurt her and the man who stood beside her when no one else did, Lily felt something unfamiliar settle into her bones. Peace, finally choosing to stay. The weeks after the verdict unfolded more quietly than Lily expected. No dramatic music. No sudden joy. Just mornings that arrived without fear sitting on her chest. The restraining order kept Ethan away. But more than that, the truth had drawn a line he could no longer cross. Lily focused on small things. Prenatal checkups. Folding baby clothes donated by strangers who now felt like distant friends. Learning how to sleep again without listening for footsteps. Some nights, memories still surfaced, sharp and uninvited. But they no longer owned the room. Michael's life began to stabilize in pieces. The school job turned permanent. His supervisor noticed his care, the way he fixed things like they mattered. Ava adjusted to a routine that didn't include whispering at night or sudden moves. She started bringing home stories about classmates, about a teacher who smelled like chalk and peppermint. One afternoon, Lily attended a support group meeting downtown. She didn't speak at first, just listened. When she finally did, her voice was steady. I thought surviving meant staying quiet, she said. I learned it can also mean walking away. Heads nodded. Eyes softened. A woman across the circle reached for her hand. Outside, autumn settled into the city, leaves turning gold and red, as if even the streets were learning how to let go. The criminal case against Ethan moved forward, slow but relentless. Each step reminded Lily that justice wasn't a moment. It was a process. Some days she felt strong, others tired. Grace stayed close, grounding her when the past tried to pull her backward. Michael and Lily didn't talk about labels. They didn't need to. What grew between them was quiet and respectful, built from shared trust rather than rescue fantasies. Sometimes they just sat together, watching Ava draw or feeling the baby kick, letting silence do the work words couldn't. One evening, as they walked home from the park, Lily stopped suddenly. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of him. Of happiness. Michael nodded. It takes time to trust calm after chaos. She smiled faintly. You always say the right thing. He shrugged. Mostly I just listen. As Lily's due date approached, nerves returned, this time mixed with excitement. The shelter organized a small baby shower. Nothing fancy. Handmade cards. Warm hugs. Hope stitched into every detail. On the night Lily went into labor, Michael drove her to hospital through quiet streets. Ava asleep in the back seat, clutching the same stuffed bear. Lily breathed through each contraction, grounding herself in the sound of Michael's calm voice. Hours later, as dawn softened the sky, Lily held her daughter for the first time. Hope Harper Reyes was small and perfect, her cries strong and certain. Lily wept openly, every tear carrying years of pain she no longer had to hold. Michael stood nearby, eyes wet, heart full in a way he hadn't known was possible. Ava climbed onto bed carefully, staring in awe. She's real, she whispered. Yes, Lily said, pressing her forehead to Hope's. She is. If you believe love still wins, even after darkness, comet, and man, let's fill this moment with hope. Someone scrolling right now might need to see it. Life didn't become perfect after that. Some scars stayed tender. Some days were heavy. But Lily learned that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing forward anyway. Ethan was sentenced months later. Not enough, some said, but enough to mark the truth in record, in consequence, in memory. His name faded from billboards and galas, replaced by quieter accountability. Lily returned to school, studying counseling. She wanted to help others find language for what they'd survived. Michael supported her, watching Ava grow into confidence, watching Hope grow into laughter. On a spring afternoon, they stood together at a school playground. Children ran past them, screaming with joy. Lily leaned against Michael, comfortable, unafraid. Do you ever think about that garage? She asked softly. He nodded. Sometimes. I'm glad you didn't walk away. Michael looked at Ava, pushing Hope gently on the swing. Me too. The sun dipped low, painting everything warm. The world kept moving, imperfect, unpredictable, but filled with moments like this, moments worth protecting. And as Lily watched her children laugh, she understood something fully at last. Pain may shape us, but it doesn't get to define the ending. The story wasn't over. It was just finally hers to live. Years later, the city still looked the same from a distance. Glass towers, busy streets, people rushing past one another with eyes fixed forward. But for Lily, everything felt different now, because she was different. She stood in a small community center classroom, sunlight pouring through wide windows. Posters about healing boundaries and self-worth lined the walls. A circle of chairs waited quietly. In a few minutes, women would arrive, some nervous, some guarded, some still unsure if their pain even had a name. Lily adjusted the sleeves of her sweater and took a steady breath. Across town, Michael tightened a loose bolt on a playground slide at the school. The bell rang, children spilling out in laughter and noise. Ava waved at him from across the yard, confidence shining from her smile. Hope toddled nearby under a teacher's watchful eye, her laugh light and fearless. Michael wiped his hands on his pants and paused, letting himself feel it. Not pride exactly, but gratitude. For ordinary days. For safety. For the quiet miracle of stability. Back in the classroom, the women began to arrive. One by one they sat. Lily saw a fear she recognized. Silence she once lived in. When it was time, she didn't start with advice or strength. She started with truth. I didn't think I was brave, Lily said gently. I thought I was surviving the best way I could. It took me a long time to learn that my voice mattered, even when it shook. A woman across the circle began to cry. Another reached for her hand. Lily continued, steady now. You don't owe forgiveness to anyone who hasn't taken responsibility. You don't owe silence to anyone who hurt you. And you are not broken because it took time. The room breathed together. That evening, Lily walked home slowly. Michael met her at the door, Hope on his hip, Ava chattering about her day. Dinner smelled like garlic and bread. Simple, warm, real. After the girls were asleep, Lily and Michael sat on the balcony, city lights blinking softly below. The air was calm. Do you ever think about how close everything came to not being this? Lily asked. Michael nodded. Sometimes. But I try not to live there. She smiled. Me neither. They sat quietly, not needing to fill the space. Somewhere far away, a siren wailed, then faded. Life kept moving, messy, imperfect, alive. If the story touched something in you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for a channel, not for applause, but for every soul who carried pain in silence and still chose kindness. One small click can say, I see you. You mattered. Lily often thought back to the night in the garage. The fear, the shock, the moment everything could have gone another way. She knew now that heroes didn't always look strong. Sometimes they looked tired. Sometimes they held a mop instead of a weapon. Sometimes they were just people who refused to look away. Michael never called himself brave. If asked, he would shrug and say he did what anyone should. But Lily knew better. Ava knew better. And Hope would grow up knowing that the world could be cruel, but also that one person's courage could bend its direction. The lesson Lily carried forward wasn't loud or dramatic. It was simple and it was human. Evil survives when good people stay silent. Healing begins when someone chooses to speak. And hope grows when even one stranger decides that another life is worth protecting. The city lights continue to shine. Somewhere, another choice was waiting to be made. And maybe, just maybe, because of this story, someone would choose differently.